My first experience that I can remember with death was when my grandfather died. And I remember not really understanding much, and I really remember the fact that I never went to the funeral. I think it's probably 35 years ago, and kids just never went. And wind the clock forward a little bit further, and when I was 15, I will never forget, I walked up to the school tuck shop, and there was a friend of mine. We played in a quartet together. He played piano, and we had a drummer, a bass player, and I was a trumpeter. And Simon, the piano player, he was brilliant. Whenever we went to Eisteddfods, the judges would always reply, and, in the report, we would win the Eisteddfods, and they would say, nice trumpet playing, good bass playing, great drummer, exceptional piano player. Simon was brilliant, actually, as a musician. But this one day, as I walked to the tuck shop, here he was standing, and I'll never forget it, both his arms were up in the air. And on both sides, there was just blood pouring down as he slit both of his wrists. They took him off to hospital, and you can imagine the next week everyone was talking about how Simon was crying out for help, and he just did it for, attention. And I remember even at 15 at that stage, and I thought, you know what, no matter why he did it, we need to help him. I invited him to the youth group. For me, I started going to youth group 2 years earlier, and that was really important for me, and I invited him along. He used to come to my house at 6 o'clock at night, and we'd go to youth group at 7 on a Tuesday night. 6 o'clock came, Simon never showed. 6:30, 7 o'clock. I went to youth group, just really disappointed that he never turned up. Anyway, I went to school the next day, and I'll never forget it. I won't forget the teacher. I can name him. I'll never forget where I was at the time. This teacher pulled me aside and told me that my friend Simon, the night before, had hung himself and died. I don't remember much about what happened then, but I remember the funeral and parts of it really vividly. I remember sitting next to my mate Nick. I remember getting there in the back of a station wagon. There was 4 of us in the back of the station wagon. You could never do that now. We sat there, only about 5 rows from the front. I remember seeing my friends, but I remember vividly when they carried the coffin out that there was a silver-like plate and my friend's name was on it. I remember going to the cemetery and watching the coffin being lowered. I remember going to the wake. I remember no one ever spoke to me. My parents never talked to me about it. School teachers never talked to me about it. I remember some of our friends, we would talk a little bit, but it was a taboo subject. And so here I was at 15, and one of my best mates had died, and I didn't get it. And I've taken that into my life in such a way that at 17 I became a youth leader. In my early 20s, 23, I became a full-time youth pastor. And here I am 23 years later, 24 years later, still doing it. And yet all the way along, this whole area of grief and funerals and helping people in time of trauma has just been something that's been part of my life. And I guess for me, I explain it as a gift from God, really, that I would use what God's given me. And I look at it, and people even talk to me sometimes because I'm an extrovert. And I love life, and I love being fun, and I love the energy of parties, and I love to travel, and I love family, and my life is not down, it's up. And yet I'm surrounded so often by people in grief and loss and trauma, and I think, why would I be the one to go in and help? And yet for over 1,000 funerals, majoring significantly with suicides and homicides and even kids, I'm the one. And I'm really thankful. I guess that's the only way I can describe it. When I look back at a 15-year-old boy that I was, the silence, no education, no understanding. Even today, when I think about it, I can remember it so vividly. And I don't want that. And I've made a decision to follow my passion, and that is to help people to live well, even when they're in grief. To help educate, to explain the funeral process, to help kids understand what it means a little bit more about forever, to know what it is to explain what death means to a child, to do webinars and even one-on-ones and life coaching, that death isn't the end, but death isn't, life is not about death, but death is a part of life. And I want to help people to thrive, to live their best life, even though there's a mountain called grief in front of them. You know, people say, oh, when they get over their grief, when it's done. You know what? It's never done. My experience personally, I've had loss throughout my life, from death to I lost my right eye when I was 20 years old. I've been through the cancer journey. I've had relationship breakdowns and job losses, and like so many of you out there, I get it. I get loss is huge, and grief, this mountain, doesn't go away. People say when it stops, when you're over it. Well, I've learned you don't get over it. What you learn is how to go under it, over it, through it, around it. You learn to navigate life with the mountain called grief. But I'm here to testify. Sure, not every situation. Some of the tragedies and the tragic stories I hear from people, I don't know how they get out of bed ever. But for most of us, there are keys and principles that make a difference. I want to help you live well with grief. It's a little bit about my story. It's why I'm inspired and motivated to do what we do.